get into this project, connecting the dots?
Yeah. I'd known Emily for quite a few years, and the project that I mentioned that I did when I was 14 was actually one that she ran or organised. And then I was in and out of touch with her through high school as she continued to do various projects. She worked for the ASO for a while, and then she started connecting the dots in music a few years ago. And she messaged me asking if I'd be interested in doing a mentorship with her. So I applied for some funding, which I was lucky enough to get through CarClue. I did a mentorship with her all of last year, which was a lot of assisting on her projects and developing my own as well. And then she asked me to come back for the Nest this year as the lead teaching artist, which was very nerve-wracking, but super exciting to lead a project of that scale. It was the largest project that I'd led or designed to date. But yeah, so that's how I got involved initially. And yeah, it was a pretty life-changing experience.
So a lot of your projects kind of focusing on how to, I guess, change the process of music making, I guess, from the standard, like just sit by yourself and practice?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on collaboration, and I guess the primary focus is giving the people who are involved creative agency. So it's a lot about making creative choices and what that looks like, finding what that looks like for people as individuals and as communities. And passing over as much of the leadership to them as we can, and using our artistry to support them in that. Yeah.
How did you find that mentorship, and how did that help foster the creation of your own projects?
Yeah, it was fantastic. It's I really believe in mentorship as a very exciting form of education outside of our kind of formal education institutions. That kind of one-on-one practical learning is really exciting. Like, I would compare it to vocational learning almost in a sense. But yeah, just having someone that I could ask all of those industry questions to that never kind of get explained to you, things like applying for funding and terminology around putting on projects, which is all super helpful. And then, having the opportunity to actually work hands-on on some of these projects was really exciting. And like you mentioned when you did my little bio intro, I use the word teaching artist a fair bit these days, which is a term that comes more from the US. It's not being used as much here, but it's starting to kind of get picked up in Australia. It means a bunch of different things. There's equivalent words like community musician or participatory artist, or just music educator more broadly. But being able to define what teaching artistry looks like in Adelaide and maybe more broadly Australia was something that felt really exciting about taking on that mentorship. And Emily is really leading the way with teaching artist work in Australia, which is really exciting.
Artistically teach.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not teaching with artist stuff as an add-on or the other way around. It's like two of them really holistically.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a cool term.
Exciting. These photos you sent me, 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening? Let's just lay them all out on the table. Oh, I like this kind of... Let's talk about this first.
Yeah, sure.
The rain soundscape. This is a screen. We have some names and some correspondent weather underneath those names, and the level of intensity of those weather.
Yep.
And that's all I see without being there. Tell us what's happening here.
Sure. So just for a little bit of context, the Nest was a 5-day residency that we did in 2 schools. The South Australian School for Vision Impaired Students and Kilparran, which is a school for kids with multiple and complex disabilities. And so we took a team of teaching artists there, and basically we spent the week making music in response to a text that Finnegan Crookmeyer wrote that Rachel Brewerville did the music for, and then the kids all wrote a bunch of music in response, which was lovely. So this here is a soundscape activity that we did with a group of the senior students from Kilparran. Most of these students are non-verbal, are in chairs. So we wanted to find a way that they could make music that didn't necessarily mean playing live instruments, because for a lot of them that's not necessarily the best expression of their capabilities. So this was a really beautiful workshop that we facilitated, where we used some tech. Well, I looked up a website. It's just a rain sound generator, or soundscape kind of generator. Pretty standard ones. People use them for studying a lot, those kind of things. But to take this idea of building a soundscape, making some creative decisions around sounds and thinking about how they work together. So the process of putting this together was each student got to select the sound that they wanted. They got to select when they wanted it to appear in the soundscape, and they got to talk about the intensities, so things like loud and soft. And we got to really spend time learning how each of those students communicated. Because a lot of them are non-verbal, we're looking for things like facial cues, or they can communicate using their pod system, where they can point to different words. And it was so lovely to be able to do a workshop that was so slow and really just at their pace, and where we really made time for them. And yeah, so this soundscape got played during the big performance that we did, with some of Rachel Burrill's music over the top, so instrumental music happening at the same time. It was a really nice way to capture what these kids could make, in a way that prioritised their means of communication.
Yeah, so with the creative decision making, so in this, so they were talking about, they chose like what sound, the intensity, and when and how. So for you said that the students did a live music response. What was that process of like?
Yeah, so there were many different things that were happening. So this was just one of the groups, and then some of these kids actually did do some live instruments as well, with some rain sticks and things like that. But yeah, because we had the two schools, and then we had senior students. So there were kids aged probably year ones around 5, 6, right up to 18, 19 across this project. So a real age range. But yeah, some of the kids from SASFI, which is the vision impaired school, we did a lot of group composing. All the kids at SASFI learn instruments and have a really fantastic, strong music program, which is very exciting. So that was a lot of, composing in groups. I like to do a lot of stuff away from notation, so it's more just about talking through ideas and playing them, and using your instrument as the way you compose, instead of it being very isolated from your instrument, which was certainly my experience of composition through school. Lots of plonking notes into Sibelius without a real understanding of how it connected to instruments and to the things that were making sounds. So we did lots of things in that way. We did a lot of syntax composition, so using the rhythm of speech and language to create rhythms and to create melodies. And then a lot of the kids learned to play some of the songs that Rachel wrote for this concert or this production as well. So there's a whole lot of different musical creations being made.
I love that.
Yeah,